HighBridge, a division of recorded books, presents Voice of the Fish, a lyric essay, by Lars, read by Julie Maisey. I mean river as a verb, a happening. It is moving within me right now. This is not juxtaposition. Body and water are not two unlike things. They are more than close together or side by side. They are the same. Body, being, energy, prayer, current, motion, medicine. The body is beyond six senses, essential, an ecstatic state of energy, always on the verge of praying or entering any river of movement. Energy is a moving river, moving my moving body. Natalie Diaz. The first water is the body. On June the 23rd, 1626, a fishmonger of Cambridge Market discovered a century-old manuscript in the belly of a codfish. Half dissolved and wrapped in sailcloth, the sextodecimo fell into the hands of Dr. Mead of Christ's College, Cambridge, who happened to be walking through the market that day. Vox Piscis, or the bookfish as the manuscript became known, was published a year later and contained several theological treatises: The Preparation to the Cross and to Death, A Mirror or Glass to Know Thyself, A Brief Instruction to Teach a Person Willingly to Die and Not to Fear Death, The Treasure of Knowledge. The texts were attributed to the Protestant reformer John Frith, who, during his lifetime, spent months imprisoned in the belly of an Oxford fish seller on charges of heresy. Sentenced to death on June the 23rd, 1533, Frith was burnt at the stake in Smithfield, London, upwards of 250 nautical miles from King's Lynn, where the codfish was finally landed 93 years later. Chapter 1. In Water Disjointed from Me. In childhood photographs, I blur within a bath of dead squid, sleep atop hot concrete, severed magpie wings splayed across my back. My mother always distrusted conventional family portraits, and along with mirrors and weighing scales, banned them from the house. The body was movement, volume, was rhythm through space. The body was not to be looked at, except when that looking made it strange, when the stilling of a body undid it. Lent an enduring instability. I experience my body as interiority that radiates. Mirrors unnerve me. I don't know my weight. I don't tend to look at myself. I like gestures. Words come least naturally to me. I tend to think in images, textures. In the summer of 2014, I tore the muscles from my right shoulder to my lower back while weightlifting. After 2 months, the injury hadn't healed, not even begun to. As it turned out, I would spend the next 6 months bedbound, medicated, unable to wash or dress myself. Doctors would fail to explain the lack of progress, and I, having exhausted the list of hospital units, would return to bed, watch flickering images on an old television set. Around the same time, I lost the ability to speak, read or write. At first I stuttered. Later I remained silent. As for reading, I could manage a line, but any more and I felt nauseous. I still can't fully explain this loss of language, why my body caved. Exhaustion, depression, the sheer physical pain. But living for 6 months in a body that wouldn't adhere to words, that balked at sentences, made me aware of the body as texture, as image and gesture, rhythm, as varying weight. After those months of illness, I wanted to write differently, wanted language and narrative to carry more physicality, come as the thud of soil burying a face, plummet, a bird petrifying as it enters a lake, to adhere to a visual or gestural logic, less worded, more photographic, more movement. I quit academia, research, a translation career. I started over. I have always found pronouns to be slippery, distant things. At school, I wrote and talked about myself in the third person masculine. My teacher expressed concern. My mother, thank Christ, replied, "So the kid's fucking weird. They all are. Give it time." I remember the evening my mother knelt down, sighed. "Lars, my love, you've got to start writing I for homework." I stood there, crew cut, boys' clothing, boys' toys, a boy's bike, and my mother in front of me, men's shirt, men's boots, a woman who, in her own words, was never meant to be a mother because she was queer. A woman who decided not to abort when she fell pregnant by the man she was about to divorce for a woman, who, when she phoned the UK Lesbian and Gay Helpline in 1988, was told that if she mentioned her sexuality as a motive for divorce, she would lose child custody, her teaching job, would remain unemployable. This woman, who has lived in the closet her whole life, from family, friends, from me until I was 11, she looked at me, not saying anything, both of us just looking at one another. Even then, I didn't like the direction in which this was going. I came home that week with a writing assignment. What I did this weekend. I remember how the sentences clotted, disintegrated every time I thought them, how I broke them before they hit paper. He buried a cat. I buried a cat. I learnt to use this I to speak and write and do, as if my body somehow reverberated within this sound. But I have never felt comfortable with an I, or in bringing any concept of me as a self to language. I find silence and physicality come more naturally, and distance, to feel oneself as over there, as nebulous, within and without. Non-binary, transmasculine. My gender exists for the most part as unseen, unworded, unintelligible. It is instead reduced to the gender I was assigned at birth, as if any counter to this will always be less real. Somehow, gender requires corporeal inscription to be accepted. I regularly find myself trying to explain my gender in terms that will make it intelligible to another. Yet despite trying to explain how pronouns still carry somewhere in water disjointed from me, how I sense myself as movement, as lake or late-night radio, as a thing that feels weighted, finds it hard to rise, break surface. Eventually these attempts return crudely to bodily specifics, usually of erogenous zones. What might gender look like written beyond the blurring of a male-female binary, the body expanded beyond its periphery, animal, vegetable, mineral, textural, gestural, the body hard and soft, a thing to be warmed or cooled, wrapped in cloth. During the months I was ill, I kept trying to read. A new book, a short book, chapter, story, a poem, books that I'd read before, books whose openings I knew by heart. All this accompanied by exhaustion, vertigo, nausea. I would lie still after that, numb, the body drawing blank after blank, static thoughts greying over bedsheets. I remember the first book I read about a year later. I read it slowly, a paragraph at a time. It was Oscar Moore's PWA, a collection of Moore's newspaper columns written as he was living with AIDS. Everything about that book lifted this body. Its gentleness, its humour, its generosity. Since falling ill, I believe writing to be a vital act. All the more so when it comes from bodies so often marginalised or written over. I look to writing, urgent, unusual writing, as an art that can make someone feel seen, feel relevant. For a moment, writing can prove wide enough for another to stand within, breathe out. Literature alters the texture of things, how we are, or do, or see. I write with the hope that for someone somewhere, these words might prove a salve, might rinse the eyes, warm the chest. Ultimately, though, I hope these words might bring someone, whoever they are, back to themselves, differently. Chapter 2. Last night, a pike swam up the stairs. 1. Perch circled the skirting boards. Sticklebacks twitched at the foot of the bed. 2. As a child, I believed my body thrummed with fishes. I drew pictures. The body aqueous, ovular, amorphous, walled by cartilage, algae, silt. Eels coiled in the stomach. Anemones pulsed in the gut. And always a pike, lone, muscular, writhed up the throat. 3. When I matured physically and my body began not to fit, I always wondered whether it had nothing to do with biology or hormones, whether it was because the fishes had stayed or left. 4. There is also the pike. These, as Aristotle reports, are a solitary and carnivorous fish, and they have a bony tongue, adhering to the mouth, and a triangular heart. In shrewdness, he is superior to other fish, being very ingenious at devising means to save himself, on which account Aristophanes the comic poet says, "The pike, the wisest of all fish that swim." And Archistratus says, "Take the large Cestracephalus from Gyson, when you do come to fair Miletus city. Take, too, the pike, the offspring of the gods, Athenaeus of Naucratis, the Deipnosophists, or Banquet of the Learned of Athenaeus." 5. To be captivated by violence, pulsing blue light. To stand transfixed, face pressed to 8-inch acrylic. My mother gave me her love of water, of scaled, fronded life. My mother gave me her strange love of aquariums, an attraction, a repulsion. The same fraught interests that led her to photograph me again and again before fish tanks, my body growing, morphing to the slip of manta rays, ribbon eels, sharks. All of us captured, spectator and spectacle, shimmering across the glass. Their bodies long dead by now, mine still shifting, propelling slowly through the days, sloughing itself. But momentarily, all of us, caught in light and gelatin, still together as we fade from chromogenic paper. 6. In one series, taken with a timer, I glance at a penguin cresting towards me in the tank. 3 shots. The penguin ever better in view, and me, 4 years old, ever more twisted, the camera lens abandoned, looking only at the penguin, only wanting that, to look, not to be looked at. 7. Florida, USA, 1996. Docks. A tugboat. Sky blue. Sponges strung between cabin and mast. Heat banding off the boardwalk. The water. Off pelicans' outstretched wings. My mother hurried me to a nearby building. Once used to store engines and nets, the hangar had been swept clean. Hand-painted signs littered the entrance. Shark fishing, full-day excursion, catch guaranteed. Shades swirled over my feet. I walked forward, blinked. An air pump whirred. My mother removed her sunglasses. There, look at that. A cylindrical tank towered in the midst of the darkness. I stepped closer. my skin humming aquamarine. A sand tiger shark circled the glass. Its shadow glided over my mother's eyes, lips, neck. My mother picked up her Nikon, lifted me onto the tank ledge. Face me, Lars. That's it. Now wait. I missed it. Stay there. Keep looking at the camera. No, ignore that. It doesn't matter what they think. Wait. It's too dark. OK, hold still. The shark's coming back. The searing white of a camera flash. Once, twice, 3 times. On our way out, I overheard a staff member say, "I don't know what's gotten into him. He leapt in the tank and ate Bobby. A few of the smaller fish too." Leapt? Clean leapt out and back down into the tank. I read the sign. No flash. 8. In the photograph, I wear navy shorts. My chest is bare. My hair mid-length, sun-bleached. I glow. Bluish-green. Androgynous. A body that hesitates. Male, female, something else, something more, perhaps. Inches behind me, the sand tiger shark skims the wall of the tank. Snout, gills, dorsal and caudal fins, 7 feet and 200 pounds of muscle, fat, of sandpaper skin. 9. I remember that childhood holiday to Florida as a rush of heat and colour, as skittering geckos and soaring pelicans. It is strange to think of myself then, a child caught in the neon and fiberglass of Florida's tourist docks, spray exploding over the boardwalk. To think of myself caught in the sticky heat, palms chittering, in a place more vivid than anywhere I'd ever been. I couldn't know that I'd return decades later, that I'd live there, drive hot metal through grinding traffic, egrets fluttering through sirens, shouts. That some 20 years after our holiday in Florida, after I'd grown, attended universities, acquired and lost jobs, made and lost friends, this photo of me and the shark would resurface, fall from the pages of a book. My mother would text me a copy, and this image, photograph of a photograph, colours filmy, would find its way back to me, slap up through the years like bleached plastic, brine-streaked and tangled in kelp. 10. Written in the 3rd century AD, Athenaeus Naucratus's The Dionyphosists, or Dinner Table Philosophers, is a 15-volume work of fictional banquet conversations, supposedly held between esteemed philosophers, physicians, grammarians, lexicographers, jurists and musicians, themselves either fictional or long dead. The work references some 700 earlier Greek writers and 2,500 texts. Considered the world's oldest cookbook, whilst also renowned for its clear portrait of homosexuality in late Hellenism, the book's subject matter ranges from lentils to spare livers, from the use of silver plate to the misconduct of fishermen. And in this same work, indeed where else, one finds mention of a ship built by Archimedes for the tyrant Hero II, a ship of gargantuan proportions, whose floors depicted the Iliad in mosaic, whose hull held a gymnasium, variegated marble baths, gardens, horses and, crucially, a fish well of vast proportion. 11. There was also a cistern near the head of the ship, carefully shut, and containing 2,000 measures of water, made of beams closely compacted with pitch and canvas. And next to the cistern there was a large watertight well for fish, made so with beams of wood and lead. And it was kept full of sea water, and great numbers of fish were kept in it. Athenaeus of Naucratis, the Deipnosophists, or Banquet of the Learned of Athenaeus. 12. For almost 2 millennia, this early form of fish tank seemed as mythic as Hero II's watercraft. But between 1958 and 1959, construction workers excavating grounds for the Leonardo da Vinci Airport in Fiumicino, Italy, unearthed the remains of several ancient vessels. Far from the planes expected to roar over that land, snarls of metal, petrol and plastic hurtling above the earth, the workers found crafts fated not to air but to water. Discovered on the former site of a harbour basin, a building project undertaken by Emperor Claudius in AD 42, entire hulls of Roman cargo ships groaned from the sludge. Ships that would once have carried 7,500 sacks of grain, some 3,000 jars of wine or oil. One set of ruins stood out. Referred to as Fiumicino 5, they belonged to a fishing boat complete with navis vivaria, or live tank. Constructed from wooden planks coated in lead, the tank would have held seawater and live fish, thus facilitating the transportation of catch to market. Confirmer of myth recovered by accident, the ancient tank is the sole example in existence from Roman times. 13. When the photograph of myself in Florida made its way back to me, I couldn't help but look at it. I made it the background on my phone. Eating alone at a roadside diner, I pressed the home button, looked again for the brief seconds of a timed bulb. A shark and a 7-year-old flared into darkness, surfaced from a waterlogged night. 14. This photograph is more complicated than those where I am 3 or 4. My expression, not quite fear, more wariness, distrust, as if somehow in just 7 years of living, I realised I wasn't quite what this world wanted. At least not what people wanted. Animals, plants, they didn't care. My mother also didn't give a damn. She let me wear boys' underwear, boys' clothes, play with boys' toys. She never curtailed how I navigated this body or its place in the world. But I did not fit. And on some level I seemed aware of it. TV, books, films, no one else came jarring in their own skin. At school, none of the girls swam in trunks, threw off their t-shirt in hot weather to play football. No one blunted towards different limbs. 15. I became increasingly uneasy in photographs. At 15, I shrank from cameras. Even in those few years between 3 and 7, my relationship to the world altered. After weeks of staring at the photograph of myself with the shark, I realised it was here, in eyes lit with electricity, here, at 7 years old, that I already knew the danger of being seen, that my own body could be mobilised against me. 16. Looking at this photograph on the bus, in laundrettes, in quiet drifts of empty time, I wondered if I might be able to write of my oldest obsessions, water, aquatic life. If I might let them glide, softly sweep and tide, an undercurrent to clear moments, to images hurled upwards, foaming across rocks. To feel at disjoint from one's body, to not recognise it as one's own. The photograph of myself at 7 pulsed this book alive, propelled me to write of the gulf between myself and my body, strange chasm that still snakes with life. 17. In several country seats, fish eat out of the hand. But at Hellerus, a fortress of Sicily not far from Syracuse, and likewise in the spring of Jupiter of Labranda, the eels even wear earrings. Pliny the Elder, Naturalis Historia. 18. A religious shrine and pilgrimage site for the Carians, Labranda sits on a mountainside overlooking modern-day Milas. A natural spring rushes from beneath a rock, seemingly cleft in two by a lightning bolt. The shrine's focal point, and reason for being, singled out as a place of worship. 19. In the 1940s, Swedish archaeologists excavated Labranda. They unearthed a temple to Zeus, 3 andirons or male club buildings, 2 stowers, 2 Roman baths, priests' lodgings, a nymphaeum, a stadium, and a potential treasury, all enclosed at the site's periphery by tombs and sepulchres. Set apart from the banqueting halls and lodgings, archaeologists discovered what appears to be the fountain and pool of Pliny the Elder's bejewelled eels. Adorned with gold earrings and necklaces, these fish were kept as oracular aids and used to decipher messages from the gods. And so, as animals of hoof and hide were sacrificed at the annual 5-day feast to Zeus, their bones and fat burnt as offerings, as men wrestled and ran in the stadium, pitting earthbound flesh against earthbound flesh, as servants butchered and cooked carcasses for the feast, the eels, just paces from this thick pulse of blood and fat and fur and mud, of gulped fetid air, the eels circled, untouched, uninterrupted, their watery worlds so much closer to the ether of the gods. 20. Even centuries later, as the Swedish archaeologists examined the far reaches of the site, one location remained unobtainable: the spring. The site's origin point and likely location of its oldest artefacts, the spring proved impossible to excavate. Each time archaeologists dug around it, water rose up through the soil, rushed, flooded the trenches. I sometimes wonder whether the archaeologists ever saw the water whirl, the mud writhe, whether the land ever moved once more with glistening muscular life. 21. Men tell of the moray belonging to Crassus the Roman, which had been adorned with earrings and small necklaces set with jewels, just like some lovely maiden. And when Crassus called it, it would recognise his voice and come swimming up, and whatever he offered it, it would eagerly and promptly take and eat. Now, when this fish died, Crassus, so I am told, actually mourned for it and buried it. And on one occasion, when Domitius said to him, "You fool, mourning for a dead moray," Crassus took him up with these words: "I mourned for a moray, but you never mourned for the 3 wives you buried." Claudius Aelian, On the Nature of Animals. 22. Recurring dream. My body, sternum sawn in 2, chest clamps, green linen, anemones, red, purple, ringed deep blue. A chest of soft membranes, squirming, shining, recoils from the hum of strip lights. A surgeon transfers the anemones to a steel dish. That they did not disturb the pike, that they close my body, that the light breaks, the room plunged beneath water, rush of a knife fish, shock, white voltage, that I sink, body into bull kelp, mud, into tides, that my body tide. 23. As a child, I made lists of fishes, all kinds of lists, weights, speeds, historical facts. Some of those lists enumerated species that change sex as a matter of course. Maturing into an adult male, the ribbon eel takes on a bluish tint, but when an adult male ribbon eel reaches full size, it changes gender, turning from blue-black to searing yellow. Noting these aquatic bodies helped dissolve a world I found too hard, too strict in how it required me to live within it. These lists were never about me equating being trans to being less human. They were more an attempt to denaturalize the ways humans have...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?